Hi, and welcome to the Quarterback Film Room. This is Bryan. I wanted to just talk about today the importance of personality matches among quarterback, head coach, and then even offensive coordinator. This is a huge deal, um, and oftentimes it's not overlooked, but it's not really given the amount of attention that it deserves or focus that it deserves. So, it's so critical because if you have a quarterback who has a certain temperament and you pair him up with a coach who is maybe the exact opposite or he has different functions within his personality, it's not going to last. Okay? It's not going to work. So let's just take a look at this year's quarterback class and see if their personalities match up and we can analyze them maybe a little bit further. Patrick Mahomes II and Andy Reid. Okay, so temperamentally, I think they're actually similar. They both are a little bit goofy. They have a little bit of a goofy streak to them, but each of them can also be serious at the same time. Okay, so there's those two elements working hand in hand. In terms of the introversion and extroversion scale, I'd say they're probably pretty similar in that regard as well. I wouldn't classify Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes as an introvert or an extrovert. Maybe I'd probably say they're a little bit more extroverted, but they're not like a full-fledged extrovert. You know, speaking for both Mahomes and Reid. Okay, so that's a marriage that personality-wise that already matches. And you can also say that Andy Reid is somewhat similar to Alex Smith. Now, obviously, Alex Smith is highly, highly intelligent. Okay, Alex Smith is more intelligent than Andy Reid. Okay, just from a pure DNA genetical standpoint. Okay, but Andy Reid is very, very intelligent from a football standpoint, a passing game mind, offensive mind, really, really high end. So Alex Smith and him match in that regard, and then both temperamentally, personality wise, they're also similar. All right. So I think Reid and Patrick Mahomes II, that's going to be a good match just from that standpoint. Let's go to Mitchell Trubisky and John Fox, Ryan Pace. Another match, I think. So in terms of like mild manneredness, I think Pace is relatively mild mannered. John Fox is also relatively mild mannered. He can get upset, but I think for the most part, John Fox is mild mannered. Mitch Trubisky, he can be fiery. He is aggressive at times, but he's not like, an off the wall type character. Okay, so he comes from a pretty grounded family and that type of thing. So I think Mitch Trubisky is pretty mild mannered as well. I think he is a worker, and that appealed to both John Fox, the offensive coordinator, Dow Loggins, who's from the South. He's a worker. I think all four of those guys, Loggins, Trubisky, Ryan Pace, and John Fox, all share a worker's mentality. So I think Trubisky will be a good fit there as well. Deshaun Watson, Billy O'Brien. Now this is one where I think that eventually it could not be pretty, but I think it's going to take some time. And let's just preface and say this: that Bill O'Brien, he doesn't get along with a lot of quarterbacks. So it's not an indictment on Watson here, but I just think that O'Brien and Watson, they are both very, very ambitious. Okay, so they're both ambitious. I think both of them speak their minds. I think O'Brien's a little bit more extroverted and loud, whereas Watson is maybe a little bit more introverted than O'Brien, and maybe less vocal, but he still has a very strong belief in his values, etc. So I think that's a good match off the bat because they are somewhat similar, but I think Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson can each be volatile in their own respective ways. So I think if things go south, at some point it could get even worse and worse, and it could be like a snowball effect. So that's a relationship to watch. Now we're going to go to New York, where they have a developmental quarterback in Davis Webb, and then they've got Ben McAdoo. So Webb, oh my God, Webb is about as extroverted as you can get. Okay, he's a guy who's going to push, push, push. He's going to, always try to create attention for himself, which isn't always a bad thing. But he's the opposite. Is the propensity, the potential for it to become volatile because of his nature. Okay, and McAdoo is more of an Eli Manning type. Okay, so he's more of an offensive guru guy, but his role as a head coach, I'd imagine that he is becoming more and more vocal, more and more out of his shell because he has to be the head coach. He's the center of the team. All right, so he's going to be less likely as an OC to just let things slide. So as a head coach with Davis Webb, this is a relationship that won't become volatile, but there could become a rift between Davis Webb and then Ben McAdoo down the line, years down the road here, potentially 2, 3, 4 years, in terms of how they see, if they see eye to eye. Like I said, Davis Webb honestly thinks he's, God's gift of football, which I would rather have a quarterback have that attitude than to be like non-believing in himself and stuff. So, it's not the worst thing, but it's just like over time, that's going to wear on people too. So there is the potential that this could get not ugly, but there could become a rift. Ben McAdoo and Davis Webb. So we've talked about 4 of these guys. Are there any more? Let's see. So Deshone, Kizer, and Hugh Jackson. That is one where I don't think there's any potential at all. Okay? Deshone Kizer, he had some issues with Brian Kelly because I think Brian Kelly inherently can treat his players and he can look down upon his players. Now, a lot of coaches end up doing that because they view players as commodities. And it's only natural for head coaches to view players as commodities as they move higher and higher up the food chain in coaching and as they spend more time in coaching. It's natural, right? So I think, but at the college level, that happens a lot because of the apartment-style nature of college football with players coming in, only staying for, X amount of years, and then there's high turnover rates with the players, with guys transferring, with new classes coming in, etc. So college coaches have a tendency to treat players as commodities. They do in the NFL too, but there are certain coaches who are predisposed to being a player's coach. Hugh Jackson is one of them. So I don't view a potential riff-raff. See the game, and there's a mutual respect for one another. So I don't really see that going south anytime soon.